Hello and welcome back to the Lore Raider. Today I want to discuss one of the last great mysteries in Metroid Dread, the motivations of Quiet Robe X. For those who don't remember, after Samus dealt with Ravenbeak and gained her Metroid powers, she returned to her ship only to realize that she couldn't fly at the risk of draining it. Then Quiet Robe suddenly appears and stares at her before allowing himself to be absorbed by Samus and helping keep her powers under control. The question many have had, and even myself, is what is really going on here? Was Quiet Robe fighting back against the X, or did the X Parasites have some sort of long game? Today on the Lore Raider, we discuss. Firstly, let's get something out of the way. The Chozo have absolutely zero control over the X Parasites, and I've seen too many people peddle this idea around. But the creation of the Metroids is precisely because the Chozo had no way to deal with the X in the first place. Secondly, I find that the chances of Quiet Robe being in control of his X form extremely unlikely. Not only because the game precedent debunks this with the ample amount of Chozo X we see in the games, we have to remember that Chozo have an extremely bad track record when it comes to this kind of stuff. What do I mean? In Prime 1, the Chozo literally devolved into a rambling paranoia and died, turning into the wretched Chozo ghosts thanks to the Phazon. Even though at the time, the Phazon haven't even, a quarter converted Talon 4. Then in Super Metroid, we find out the Chozo who crashed on the wrecked ship and died had been there for centuries and turned into the wretched Coverns, a lump of tortured ghosts only freed by Samus centuries later. Point being, Chozo suck at handling diseases and, well, being cursed. If the likes of a weakened Phantoon could control the Covern, I highly doubt Quiet Robe is overpowering the likes of the X Parasites. So, if I believe the X Parasites are in control here, the question remains, why in the world would the X Parasites save Samus Aran? Well, in Metroid Fusion, Adam posited the theory that the X's animalistic instincts were at odds with their newfound intelligence. And whilst it is likely that Quiet Robe was the most intelligent being the X ever absorbed so far in the series, by this point it had also absorbed the entire Makan tribe and even Ravenbeak by this point, and had been plaguing ZDR since before the first Metroid game started. So it seems unlikely to have been a fluke lapse of judgment from the X. The theory I present to you today is that when the X-infested Quiet Robe confronts Samus on the ship, those seconds of blank, lifeless staring is the X considering if it's going to let Samus die here on ZDR, a plan that's mere moments from exploding. I think the X sacked Quiet Robe here and let Samus live entirely out of some sort of pride in itself. And what do I mean by pride? Well, if you watch my last video, you know top tiers in Metroid have a propensity to show respect to others in the same weight class. It's why in Metroid Prime 2, Samus and Dark Samus had a great deal of respect to each other in their final clash, by Dark Samus not shooting Samus in the back, and probably why SEX attempted to intervene and fight the Omega Metroid, probably wanting to kill Samus herself. I think the X, particularly now that its memories are full of the warrior culture that is the Makan tribe of Chozo, and we know the X are on the loose in the galaxy, are basically too prideful to let the biggest challenge their race has ever faced die to something so anticlimactic as being trapped on an exploding planet. Finally, the idea of the X deciding to spare Samus, effectively because they want to kill her themselves, also closes any plot holes that arise from the Quiet Robe is in control theory. For example, it explains why Quiet Robe turned on the Emmy again, because at the time, of course the X would be satisfied disposing of Samus through the Emmy, whilst also doing away with another obvious plot hole of why none of the other very intelligent beings the X absorbed managed to break free of their control, like Ridley X. That, and if Quiet Robe X was a traitor, and the other X should have been able to sniff out his intentions, why did they not stop him? And we know that they can communicate with each other because they created the Blue Eyes X in Fusion, even when those X should have theoretically been pretty much mindless. All in all, I like the idea that the X begrudgingly respects Samus, to the point that it wants to do her in on their own terms, and not due to some fluke as ZDR's admittedly random self-destruction. We know how I leave you. Be safe, be wise, and please pray for a true peace in space.